All right, JJ, we're at the point now where we are talking about execution and not the kind of killing execution, unless you're talking about making a killing, and making a lot of profit. But you're talking about, let's get up and let's get at them. Let's quit talking about it. Time to do it.
That's right. I mean, so many times people fall into this paralysis of analysis, and we've talked about that, I know, where people just want to analyze things so much that they simply become paralyzed. They do nothing. Well, that's the worst thing they could possibly do, is nothing. Now, I've had people that say, but this way I've guaranteed myself that I won't fail. I say, you've also guaranteed yourself that you won't succeed. You've got to actually go out there and implement your plan, because the best laid plans are all for naught if we don't actually put them in action. That's what I see people do far too often. And sometimes one of the trappings is that they can feel like they're working because they're working on their plan. And that's one of the biggest pitfalls that I see people fall into. Is they say, no, I got a lot done because I really got my financial statement formalized, or I got this form. And I say, you spent so much time working on making sure that was perfect that you didn't go out there and make things happen. And that's one of the primary things that I want to make sure that people understand, is that there's a balance. There's a fine line between obsessing on making sure your plan is perfect and going out there and really implementing things to produce results.
Because at the end of the day, you still got to generate revenue. You got to generate some income, produce some income, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, the thing is, if you don't have that fuel for your overall tank, you're going to stall. You're going to basically be pulled over on the side of the financial highway, and you're not going to make it. So you've got to make sure that you're out there putting things into action. I'm telling you, it's never going to be perfect. I don't care if you spend an entire year perfecting your plan. It's never going to be perfect, because something may come up that you didn't anticipate. That's why you've got to go out there, put it into action, because even if you get a little ways down the road before you have to alter things and then continue further down the road, basically, as they say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Make sure you take that single step, or you're never going to get anywhere near your goals that you've set for yourself.
For a lot of people, though, it's just not in their personality. They're not super action-oriented. It's tough for them to kind of get out of that paralysis of analysis, as you've described. It's tough for them to get up off the couch and do it. And so how do you reach those people, and how do you get that type of person with that type of personality up and at them?
Well, Robbie, I know you have kids, and I have kids, and a lot of people, if they don't have kids, they've at least been around kids. And what you see is that a lot of times kids, they just do things, especially the really young kids. They just do it. They don't know any better. They don't know about any limitations that they have. They don't realize that, I may fall down. And then when they fall down, what do? They get right back up, and they say, wow, and then I fell down again. You look at them, you say, you might want to learn that you keep falling down. Stop doing that. No, they need to learn certain things for themselves. You see, being cautious, being risk averse, that is learned behavior. If you look at it and see, we teach people, basically in this country, basically in this world, we teach people, no, don't do that, you might get hurt. Well, you know what? The best lessons that we ever learn sometimes come from getting hurt. I'm not telling people go out there and risk their life savings. No, we take calculated risks. As we've mentioned in previous sessions, we want to make sure that we go out there, we take the risk, because along with risk comes the reward. The key is it's got to be calculated risk. We don't want to take foolish risk, but as with children, this is a learned behavior. Learned behavior got us so risk averse. Well, learned behavior can also help us to go out there and make things happen.
All right, I know you've got a lot of strategies for helping people execute their ultimate game plans, their ultimate goals. Let's take a look at some of those strategies, and let's see if we can put them to good use.
Strategy 1. Complete your goals assignments.
Everyone has an image in their head of their perfect life. Some people seem to have the golden touch and be able to turn that image into a reality, no matter how far away from that dream they may have been when they first started. Many people view these people as lucky. Well, luck may have had a small part to play in their success, but by and far, the ability to actively go after their goals is what propels these individuals towards success. They created, implemented, and stuck to their goals assignments. They knew where they were, where they wanted to go, and they took action to get there. It's often been said that if you don't first know where you're going, you certainly won't know how to get there. Opportunity could practically beat down your door, but if you don't recognize it as such and get up and answer the door, you may have unknowingly missed the opportunity of a lifetime. Making a list of your life goals is like mapping out a trip. You need to know where you're going, and you need to know how you're going to get there. By looking at your maps, you can then determine routes to take, travel time, and even the cost of the trip. However, in order to successfully complete this trip, you must actually hit the road. Sitting on the couch and thinking about it won't get it done. You must get up, pack your bags, and step out the door. You must complete your goals assignments in order to begin your journey towards your success.
Strategy 2. Begin operating your records management system.
A successful business requires good record keeping and accounts management. Just imagine the chaos in a major business if all of a sudden their accounting department decided to keep up with their income, expenses, receipts, and invoices by shoving them into drawers or stacking them in piles with Post-it notes. Most people couldn't imagine a business operating like this, but many do this very thing with their personal records. Regularly operating a records management system can simplify your life by saving you time and money. You can find and buy many good software programs, filing systems, even downloadable records from banks and lenders that can simplify your task. Office supply stores have space-saving organizers to help you more efficiently file your bills and receipts for easy access. In fact, if you have a computer, it probably came with an easy, efficient money management software already installed. But that software won't open itself up and start keeping your records for you. If you will make good record keeping become one of your habits, you can have more time to do what you enjoy, and more of your hard-earned money can be kept in your pocket rather than going out to the government. Unlike some habits, this is one you won't want to break. When you decide to start acting like a business, operating an organized records management system is absolutely crucial to gaining and maintaining proper control of your financial records.
Strategy 3. Prepare your financial information.
I've always believed that knowledge is power. Having the right information at the right time can be an amazing advantage in achieving any goal or overcoming any obstacle. As you begin your escape from the artificial wealth trap, the right information can give you a head start to reaching your goals and help keep you focused and moving forward. Determining where you are financially is just that type of information that you must have. By sitting down and making a list of your assets as well as their current values, then sitting down and making a list of your liabilities and debts and their current amounts, you'll have the information that you need in order to move forward. Once you have those lists, you'll need to compare the value of what you have to the value of what you owe. You might be better off than you thought, or you may find that the situation is more grim than you expected. The point is that knowing your current financial position helps you determine just how far the distance is from where you are to where you need to be in order to make your escape. Don't waste time beating yourself up over how far you've fallen into the trap. Beating yourself up if you don't make the effort to get free of that trap is what you need to be doing. Sit down right now and empower yourself with the knowledge you need to go out there and make things happen.
All right, JJ, good record keeping. You say that that's a habit that you have to develop. You have to develop good record keeping. We're not talking about throwing stuff in shoe boxes and bringing it up to your office at the end of the month or the end of the year. Talk about your records management system and how important it is that that component is to executing your game plan.
Well, you know, when I put these strategies together, in essence, I said, okay, now we're getting to the execution part. Let me go ahead and lay out what I think are the core, most important things that you've got to do. Most important behaviors, most important steps you need to take. The records management system is essential. And I'm not saying that you have to basically put together something that would be the results of a forensic audit or anything along those lines. That's not what we're talking about. We just mean a basic system where if anybody asks you, hey, can you produce this receipt? Sure, I know that receipt would be in this particular folder. Well, it may not even be the subfolder, but you know that would be in this particular box. that has my folders. So now you know where to go. Now once you're there, it's almost like a computer program. When you look at it, if I say, I know I've got a document somewhere that I drafted for somebody, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my computer and I'm going to click on My Documents. Well, I've got different folders that may say legal documents, estate planning documents, tax documents, financial planning documents. Well, then I can open it up and say, okay, this is probably a financial planning document. Let's double click on this folder, open it up, and then I may even have subfolders under that. And then even under those subfolders, I may say, this was the one I was looking for. The key is I knew the overall place to go, and then I could narrow it down from there. That's what a record management system is all about. It doesn't mean you've got to be so particular that you say, I don't know how I'm going to ever get any work done because I'm working on this records management system all the time. It's not like that. It's just simply having it in a place where you know if a question ever comes up regarding maybe an expense or maybe something that ties into my overall financial plan, estate plan, legal plan, or other types of plan, it's all right here in my planning location that I've established for it.
It's easy to get defeated, though, if you are so far behind on that records management and your financial upkeep that it's too daunting of a task. So, I mean, how do you kind of help people? And you mentioned this in one of your strategies, don't beat yourself up, but that's easier said than done. So, I mean, how do you make that leap?
It really is. I mean, because I see people all the time. I myself have definitely fallen into that where something just seems so overwhelming. And, I paid a consultant one time that worked with me, and I'm not going to say that the key to everything is to go hire a bunch of consultants. Some people aren't in a position to do that, but I'm completely in agreement that knowledge is the key. And I looked at it and I said, I need to surround myself with a mastermind team in keeping with my strategies. So I said, this particular consultant is somebody that helps people deal with overwhelm. So what I did was I contacted this person, went to her seminar, I contracted with her for some services to be provided, and she helped me immensely to help overcome that overwhelm. And the bottom line that she taught me was, plan your work, then work your plan. And sometimes I say, yeah, that's great, but guess what? This just still seems too overwhelming, which is what I was trying to get out of. She said, work backwards. When does it have to be done? Okay, now let's set that date. In order for it to be done by this date, what would need to be done, or what things need to be taken care of? Okay, well, when would that have to be done? Right here. And then I worked backwards. Pretty soon, when I looked at it, I said, why was I crying about stuff? Why was I whining? Why was I upset about this? Now that we've laid out a plan, all I have to do is follow this plan. You and I have worked on projects together where we said, if we don't set a plan, it's never going to get done. We've had things where there have been so many obstacles that have been in our way, but we said, no, here's the deal. Once we set this, now it's set in stone. Even setting it in a day planner sometimes can say, this is the date that I'm going to have it. This is when I blocked out. This is the date that he may be available. That's the only way that it's going to happen. It's the same way. You've got to actually set it in stone, and then focus on that plan, work that plan.
All right. Let's look at some other strategies that you're advocating for execution, for getting these game plans that we've spent all this time developing in place.
Strategy 4, adopt the 10% solution.
In order to achieve any goal, you must commit yourself fully to accomplishing that goal. Doing something halfway won't get you full results. In fact, you'll be lucky if you even get half the desired results. When you commit your efforts to escaping the artificial wealth trap, you are making a commitment to yourself and to your family for the better. Part of that commitment involves making and sticking to the personal promise to pay yourself first. By that, I mean you must commit to designating the first 10% of all monies you receive, either from a paycheck or other sources, as your 10% solution. So the first check you write each month, before rent, before food, before your car payment, or anything else, will be to yourself. Then you'll endorse that check over to your selected investment plan. You absolutely must commit yourself to doing this. In fact, you need to make a pact with yourself. Write yourself a letter of commitment, and in that letter include the amount that you're promising to pay yourself and what that will mean to you. Have a friend or family member witness this pact. The final step is to stick with your commitment each and every month. No one can make this happen but you. So don't be a roadblock to your own success. Commit to that success instead.
Strategy 5, open your retirement account.
In decades past, retirement was a very different thing than it is today. People worked for the same company for most of their lives. They contributed to the company retirement plan, and when the time came, they got their gold watch and a comfortable retirement income. In more recent years, challenges have eroded that comfortable image of our golden years into a prospect that is shaky at best. We hear on the news that companies fold and retirement plans are decimated. And even less than expected returns in retirement funds cause Americans to have to work years past the age when they'd hoped to retire. Not to mention the fact that Social Security is ridiculous. But that image of a comfortable, happy retirement is still attainable. Like everything else in escaping the artificial wealth trap, the key is to have a plan and to make that plan happen. The first step you must take is to establish and fund your own retirement plan, take advantage of an existing one, or even better, do both. This is a fantastic way to accomplish two goals at once, to build wealth while building a comfortable retirement. If you're employed, see if your employer has a retirement plan and begin contributing to it as soon as possible. If not, set up an IRA and put your money into that. Retirement plans can allow you to take advantage of the power of compounding interest as well as the power of tax-free growth. This can help you to keep your golden years golden, but you must do it right now. The longer you wait, the less time your investment has to accumulate compound interest. Delaying could cost you a fortune.
Strategy 6. Open your investment account.
Whether you're a multimillionaire or a brand new investor with just a small amount of cash, no one wants to throw their money away on bad investments. That's not to say that you may or may not have an unsuccessful investment on occasion, but what you want to go for is overall success in your investments. To become a successful investor, you must be willing to learn how to properly move your money between investments, but only at appropriate times. You must also be willing to do your research on the different investment areas. There are simple ways to do this, as well as simple investment vehicles, such as maybe the safety of mutual funds. That's properly selected mutual funds. These can help you to build your overall investment account. Your challenge is to ensure that your money is safely invested in the best investments for today's economy. After you've learned the basic principles of money market investment, you must put into practice what you've learned to ensure the best investment for you at all times. Properly selected mutual funds can be a key to successful long-term investing. They afford you the opportunity to spread your investment over hundreds of well-managed portfolios. You'll then minimize the risk to your investment and maximize your return safely.
All right, adopting the 10% solution. Give me more detail on what the 10% solution is and why this should be such an easy thing for people to do.
Well, for some people, they think that there's no possible way I can do it. But 10% basically means take a look at what your income is. And we've done that. We've identified all of our income sources, how much income we have. Once we know that, what I tell people is that now take 10% of that, and I want you 10% pay yourself first. You know, I've heard people say, well, all he taught us was to pay ourselves first. That's so basic. Well, you know what? That may be common sense, but as I've said before, the saying goes, common sense is not so common.
And they may not have been doing that already, so they should have learned something. So.
That's right. The fact that if it's so common and so basic, then they would have been doing it. If they weren't doing it, as you mentioned, that shows something right there. Pay yourself first. Basically, I give you a specific 10%. Pay yourself 10%. So if you look at it in simple math, if I made $1,000 with this paycheck or whatever the income was, take $100 of that and immediately put it into your savings account. Well, now when I say savings account, I don't mean a savings account at a bank. I mean this is your investment plan. This is something that you're not going to be spending right now. 10%, sometimes people say, wow, that's just way too much. What I've found, however, is that when people start putting that 10%, they find that they can easily live off of 90% of what they had before, especially when we're talking about money that you didn't anticipate receiving. So 10%, if you always do that 10%, now you know that you have forced yourself to start something. You're going to find yourself having a lot more money than you would if you hadn't adopted that 10% solution. Now the key is make it automatic. If you can make it automatic where it's automatically taken out of your paycheck or automatically taken out of your bank account every month, whatever that might be, however you set it, whether it's weekly, monthly, twice a month, however you set it and forget it. so that now all of a sudden you don't even see the money. That's part of the cash disgorgement that we've talked about earlier. Set it on autopilot where the bank can do it automatically out of your paycheck. Now you don't have to physically do it, and now you're not even tempted to spend it on something else.
Yeah, part of this strategy of execution that you've talked about too is the difference between a retirement account and an investment account. And some people view those as the same thing. So maybe give me some greater detail on the delineation between a retirement account that should be part of your execution strategy and an investment account.
Well, see, and that's where I differ from a lot of financial professionals out there, where they'll say, okay, that 10%, well, what do you do with that 10%? Okay, that 10% should go into maybe buying a bunch of mutual funds, or that 10% should go into maybe setting up a retirement plan. I say, no, set up the 10% for your investment account, and this is going to strike many people as strange, and maybe even strike many people as, no, now that's too cumbersome. Now you're getting us too aggressive. But I say, set another amount for your retirement. Don't blend the two. What happens is that people set the 10% and they find out it's a lot easier than they would have anticipated. Well, when you realize that it's much easier and you really could live off that, now I've got you conditioned to that particular level. Now let's kick things up a notch. Let's take maybe another 10% and put that other 10% into your retirement plan. Now I've had people that say, okay, so now I'm supposed to live off of 80% of my income. How in the world am I ever going to do that? Well, if you ever want to make sure that you can have the life of your dreams, take little steps now so that in the future, as I've said before, if you'll live like no one else, you can live like no one else.
All right, let's look at some other execution strategies that you've got. Let's come back and I want to ask you some more questions about some of these.
Strategy 7. Cut your borrowing costs.
To truly build wealth, you must get a handle on your finances. Part of this involves cutting your borrowing costs on debt that is not beneficial to your overall financial health. Cutting your borrowing costs can free up thousands of extra dollars each and every year, depending upon your debt and your interest rates. This is a powerful strategy for putting that money back in your pocket and having it work for your future. When you're ready to cut your borrowing cost, your first step is to determine just how much debt you have, to whom you owe that debt, and the borrowing cost or interest on that debt. By knowing this information, you'll have a better understanding of how much of your future income is being tied up in paying for today's expenses. Next, you must discipline yourself and your family members to make extra principal payments to cut the terms of the loans and slash the amount of interest paid. Pay as much as you can. You can make a big difference in your balance by paying an extra $25 to $100 per month towards your principal. Another step is to replace any high-interest credit cards or loans with low-interest cards. You may have to do some shopping around, but this can be financially well worth the time and effort. Reducing these kinds of expenses builds wealth. By doing what it takes to cut your borrowing costs and freeing up potentially thousands of dollars, you're taking charge of your credit spending.
Strategy 8. Develop your tax plan.
One of the biggest threats to your wealth is income taxes. All too often I hear clients and students complaining that they pay too much in taxes. That's unfortunate and completely unnecessary, because by employing the many legal ways available to slash taxes, one can save hundreds, even thousands of dollars each and every year in found money. Unless you're very familiar with the business tax preparation and the tax laws, it's very important to seek the help of a tax professional, particularly one familiar with business taxes and business deductions. Their assistance may cost you a few $100s, but to get a potential return of many times that in tax savings, not doing it is tripping over dollars to pick up dimes. By formulating a proper tax plan, you'll be able to create as many legal deductions as possible for your income, assets, and expenses. By doing this, you convert these tax deductions into spendable dollars, and that means that for every dollar of tax deductions that you create and claim, the IRS won't charge tax on that dollar. Bear in mind that you won't find these deductions by waiting until April and hoping your tax preparer can pull that tax deduction rabbit out of a hat. Tax deductions are created by having a basic understanding of tax laws and applying tax strategies on an ongoing basis throughout the entire year. Tax savings involves creating and working a tax plan. The beauty of this plan is that it can bring you tax savings not just once, but for each and every year that you operate it.
Strategy 9. Make your activities deductible.
Using the tax code to legally cut your income taxes is a powerful way to keep more of your money in your pocket. This is money that can be used to pay off debts or that can be invested in mutual funds or retirement plans to help you build your wealth that much faster. In order to maximize tax savings, we must be constantly looking for ways to legally take additional deductions and keep more of your hard-earned cash. Many forms of income, assets, or expenses can legally be made deductible. You need to understand that your new focus, your new job, your investment in yourself needs to become that you begin to structure your activities so that they become deductible. This isn't as difficult as you might think, but it will require effort on your part. You should consult with a tax professional to determine what you need to do in order to convert your non-deductible activities into deductible ones. Then you must actually continue with the steps that allow you to legally take these deductions. You'll find that it's well worth the little bit of extra effort to save significant amounts in taxes. By implementing and operating a plan to take everyday expenses that you're already making and turning them into powerful deductible expenses, you can supercharge your savings and speed your escape from the artificial wealth trap.
All right, JJ, I think that this next execution strategy that we're going to discuss is maybe the most challenging in my world, and that is you got to not only have the self-discipline to cut your borrowing costs, you got to convince your family to participate in this. You got to convince others to participate in this. How challenging is that for a lot of people?
Well, so much of it ties into explaining why you're doing it, because when you tell people, all right, you've got to cut back, it's very difficult for many people. It's just like saying, okay, you've got to go on a diet, or you can't do this. Well, a lot of people, they're not motivated at all by that type of overall thinking, that type of mentality, because they think, I don't want to have to give something up. And really, that's what causes people to fall into the artificial wealth trap. And it's not your fault. You've been bombarded with messages out there. Corporations have paid millions of dollars to these ad agencies to train you to think in a certain way. Well, you're just responding to those ads. You can't help it. You're bombarded from every angle. You're continually told you need to have this. This is what you want. And now for you to come in and say, you know what, I've decided we don't need any of that. That's very difficult. As you mentioned, that's probably the most difficult overall concept. Well, if you look at it and say, let's focus on how we can get all of these things that we've been told we need, all these things we've been told that you're supposed to want. Well, if you take the time to follow the steps in all of the strategies that we've been teaching, identify your dreams list. What is it that you really want? And when you do that, you'll find that there are a lot of things that you want that, wow, a lot of the things I currently have weren't on that list. Well, a lot of the things I thought, wow, this was too insurmountable, too unattainable for me, and that was on your dreams list. Well, if you focus on the positives that can come out of taking that action, then all of a sudden say, and this is in working with children, with my kids, for instance, I say, would you like to have that video game? Would you like to have this particular, maybe it's even a DVD? Well, let me show you how you can get it. If you will take little steps and not spend your money on this, not spend your time doing this, if you'll allocate things a little bit differently, then at the end of this road, there's going to be that reward for you. Well, if you can motivate with the reward rather than trying to motivate of, well, we're just doing this because it's the right thing to do. That should be enough. Unfortunately, is not enough. So we've got to make sure that we've got that, maybe the dangling carrot there. That's why I advocate long-term goals, but also short-term goals. Because if all you have is, okay, here's where this is going to help us. When we reach age 65 or we're 70, that's when we can start enjoying our life. We don't know that we're ever going to get to 65 or 70. Lord willing, we'll get there, but in the event that we don't want to have a miserable life up to that point. See, you can have the best of all worlds. The key is you got to learn how to do it. This is part of it. Cutting our borrowing cost is a key step in that. Now, you've got to make sure that you can cut your borrowing cost in a way where you're not paying the high income interest, and pay those off first. That's what people say. They say, I've got $10,000 in debt, maybe on 5 different credit cards, and they'll say, okay, let me just apply an equal amount across the board. Well, no, and this is so simple, but it's something that we've got to do. Pay off the highest interest card first, then start knocking them down based in order. Same thing on maybe any properties that you've got. Pay off the one that's charging you the highest amount first so that you get that handled and it cuts your overall borrowing cost.
getting everybody on the same page on that in your family. You may have to also start offering marriage counseling to some people, JJ.
Well, that's where the vision board comes in. I mean, I even have my kids have their own vision board, where they can see, okay, these are the things that I most want in my life. And then when they can tell me what they want, I can show them how to get it. It's the same thing. If you follow the same principles, think about it. If you're learning these principles from me, why can't your family learn them from you? I've basically shown you how to teach the strategies. Do what I've been doing, you do it with them. That's why I put this whole thing together, is that I want to teach people how to do things not only for themselves, but to pass it on to their heirs and beneficiaries, to their families.
All right, JJ, another strategy that we've talked about and is part of this execution, overall execution strategy that we're discussing is developing a tax plan, a way to keep a handle on your taxes, maybe even get a handle on your taxes in the beginning. Why is that so crucial, and maybe how difficult is it for people to come up with a tax plan, or is that one of the easier strategies to implement?
Well, first of all, let's take a look at why it's so important. And the reason it's so important is that taxes are the single biggest expense that we incur. A lot of times I'll ask at my seminars and different things, I'll say, okay, just by a show of hands, what is the biggest expense, or just by a response from the audience, what is the single biggest expense that we face? And most people think about mortgages.
Right.
They think my house payment, because they're not looking at it. They think about what do they pay the most for, and it may be for their house payment. And see, here's where it's so challenging, is that the government has structured it in a way where what we're dealing with is making that house payment comes out of money after we've already paid taxes. You see, and the thing is, we didn't have to physically write the check for taxes in most instances, because it automatically came out through the withholding taxes out of our paycheck. So see, when we look at it, we don't realize we already paid that. Well, from a percentage standpoint, that may be the single largest expense that we pay. For most people, it is. Now, if you realize that, see, I firmly believe if we had to physically write the check, we may be a little more concerned with taxes. And the government knows that too. So the government structured it in a way where they say, well, let's take that out. Let's pay ourselves first. And then they realize they're applying my strategies, pay yourself first. Well, they pay themselves first so that they don't have to depend upon you thinking about it. Because if you thought about it, you'd be a little more upset with taxes. Taxes take the biggest chunk. That's why we've got to take care of those so quickly. If that's our biggest expense, let's start with the big things first. When it comes to accomplishing things, since we're talking about executing the strategies, the biggest strategy that I tell people is come up with a list of the most important things that you need to do. What is the most important item? Work on that one first. And then by the time you're done with that one, then work your way down. So if you can do that, you'll knock out so much more stuff. You'll be that much more productive, that much more effective, that much more efficient. We'll do the same thing with your expenses. Knock out the biggest one first. Taxes are the biggest. Let's knock those out first.
All right, one of the things that you can do to kind of help with this tax situation that we're discussing is to make more of the items that you have to write checks for every month tax deductible. Get them out of there before you pay yourself, basically. Make them business expenses somehow. Speak to that issue a little bit more. I know we've talked about it before in some strategies, but why is that so critical to this final execution strategy that you're suggesting?
The reason it's so important is that you can't do it until you've actually structured yourself in a way to make that happen. See, people may go from this point and say, okay, hey, I'm going to make all these expenses deductible. Well, you can't until you've made the decision to turn that hobby into a business, turn that activity into a business. That is an activity, that is an action that you can take. And see, everything in this particular session, I want to focus on making sure that people see action steps. What are the top action steps that I can take to make a huge difference in my overall life? Well, one of those is structuring yourself in a way where you can change those dollars. Change from paying the after-tax dollars to before-tax dollars, as we mentioned in preserving wealth. Well, here is where we say, how do I go about doing that? Set up a business. Okay, that's the action item right here. That is the step you need to take. That's what you got to do right now. If you haven't done that, as with any of these things, finish watching this video, finish listening to this audio, do whatever you got to do, now go do it. That's the next thing. Don't say, oh yeah, let me make a schedule, I'll do that next week. No, next week's too late. You need to do it, you need to do it as soon as possible.
Well, you say that it's not as difficult as people would think that it is, but it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's not just filling out a piece of paper and mailing it in. I mean, you got to give some thought to what's going to make the most sense for you, what's going to be the best entity for you to put this enterprise in. So I guess I'm sensing a little conflict in your logic there.
Well, here's the thing. The way that we overcome anything that is difficult is with knowledge, okay? I don't care what it is. If you say, well, no, I can't do that. Why not? I don't know how. That's it. In essence, it's because I don't know how to do that. Well, how do you learn how to do it? You gain knowledge. That's what everything that I do is. If you don't know specifically how to do it, read through the strategies. The strategies show you how to do that. That's why we present our overall programs as far as our live trainings. We've got our financial hotline that we provide with people. We've got coaching sessions. All they have to do, when I say take these action steps, pick up the phone, call us. That's why we're here. We're waiting to help you do that. We are your mastermind team. So we're able to surround you in a way where we are supporting you. We're lifting you up. Whatever you need to do, we can take you there. Rely on us. That's exactly what it is that we do. That's why it's easy. You're right, it's not easy if you try to do it yourself. That's why we're here. Everything that we offer is to make it easy for you.
All right, we've got some more strategies that I want us to talk about. Let's take a look at them. We'll come back for a little bit more.
Strategy 10. Plan your estate.
Imagining their future is something that most people really like to do. We all have our dreams and ideas about where we'll be 10, 20, maybe even 50 years from now. But one of the most important plans for the future is one that most folks just don't want to think about, and that's planning for when they're gone. The purpose of an estate plan is to prepare for the disposition of your assets upon your death. By law, your estate doesn't even exist until you die. By then, whatever plan you have made, or maybe failed to make, that's locked in forever. Your estate plan must be made now because once you die, it's too late. If you die without an estate plan, that's called dying intestate. That means the state gets to decide what happens to your assets, and even worse, what happens to any dependents you may have. Not having a plan in place can leave your loved ones with the burdens and high expense of dealing with a poorly planned estate. It can also mean that your assets aren't distributed in the way that you would have wanted. To avoid this difficult situation, you must create a plan for the transfer of all your assets at death to your heirs that you choose and in the manner that you want. By putting your plan into place, you'll ensure that your wishes are carried out rather than those of the government. But you must do it. No one can make you do it except yourself. The true value of what you leave behind may well be determined by how well you plan your estate.
Strategy 11. Start your business.
Part of the American dream involves owning your own business and being your own boss. Americans have an independent and entrepreneurial spirit, but often the idea of starting a business may seem rather daunting. But understand that when I say start your own business, I don't necessarily mean for you to quit your job and snap up the first business for sale sign that you see. I mean that you should start a business that's exciting, fun, and in alignment with your interests, resources, as well as your abilities. Depending on your circumstances, that could be anything from a small internet marketing business that takes you maybe a couple of hours a week to maybe buying into a franchise and opening a full-blown storefront. What you need to realize is that in a small business, many of the personal things that you currently spend your personal dollars on become fully or partially tax deductible. Think about this. A small business, even one that's run part-time from your home, can create anywhere from, say, $5,000 to $10,000, even more dollars worth of tax deductions each and every year. That's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, even more of extra income that you can put to work to build your future wealth. But don't delay starting this small business because you just can't decide on maybe what business you want to start. That's no reason to put it off. There are options out there to suit everyone and every budget. It may be something as simple as turning your hobby into a business or taking advantage of the many prepackaged startup businesses that are available out there. The worst thing you can do in this situation is to fail to take advantage of the amazing tax savings that having your own business can bring to you. The key is you got to get it started.
Strategy 12. Embrace your new beginning.
We've discussed some of the basic strategies that will start you on your way to building a prosperous financial future for yourself, your family, and your business. The strategies you've learned so far are just a sample of the hundreds of continuing wealth building strategies that are available. These strategies are more than just good ideas or theories. They represent a plan of action to effectively manage your money. If you've listened or viewed this course but have taken little or no action, you've in effect decided to take whatever hand that life has dealt you. But if you've opened your mind and taken every applicable action possible, you've begun taking control of your life instead of letting life control you. Congratulations. As you continue in your escape from the artificial wealth trap, you'll discover the world of finances is constantly changing. But you now have the tools and knowledge that you need to stay on top of the game and to maximize your money. Remember, when you have a plan, knowledge, and the willingness to take action, everything you dream for yourself, for your family, it isn't just possible, it's probable. So my best wishes to your continued success.
Those are the final three in this execution strategy here. Let's go back to one of the first ones that we talked about in that segment right there, planning your estate. You and I have talked about estate planning for a long, long time and how crucial and how critical that is to making sure that things are the way you want them to go, whether you're here or not here. Obviously, a crucial execution strategy here. Why don't more people do it?
Really, it's because they don't think that it applies to them. They think that when we're talking about estate planning, that's only for people that are very wealthy. Because the whole word estate, think about an estate sale. People think, oh, I must be going to some big mansion or some fine home that I'm going to have these. No, what an estate sale means is somebody died. Now you're basically purchasing something from their estate. Well, people think he lives on a grand estate. Well, those are the things that people think about when they picture the whole word estate. Well, if you realize that whatever you're doing right now, look around. That's your estate. Every one of us has an estate. That's why it's so difficult. Well, if you look around and say your world, to everyone, what's in their world is the most important thing in their world. So you look at it and you say, okay, my family, my assets, it's not the assets that are so important, it's your family. Because see, how your family's taken care of, that's what the estate plan is all about. And if you realize that, then you realize the urgency, the importance of this. It's not your stuff, it's your family. That's the key. That's why it's so important.
I know you have seen so many crash and burn scenarios where people didn't have their estates in proper order and things just went terribly. When you have seen it work right, though, tell me what a beautiful thing that is to see when it goes according to plan, and maybe just some of the comfort and happiness it can provide for families when somebody has done things right.
Well, here's the thing. I know in one of our previous segments, we talked about the challenge that many people have in learning about, say, protection plans. With a protection plan, you say, well, how do I know that it worked? Because I didn't get sued? Or how do I know it worked? Because I didn't get cancer when we're talking about things that might prevent cancer or things? Well, how do you know it was that? How do I know I ever would have gotten it to begin with? The best overall estate plan is when things work so seamlessly that you say, wow, this wasn't as bad as we thought. Maybe we didn't need that estate plan. Well, the whole reason you felt like that was because you had that estate plan. This is something that death is basically a fact of life. It will occur. It's not something, if I have this, if that occurs. No, death will occur. That's when your whole estate comes into being. Because now we're dealing with how everything transitions from your estate to the heirs and beneficiaries. Well, the best one is when everything's taken care of and there's as little stress as possible with regard to the transition to your heirs and beneficiaries. Now, there's always going to be stress, there's always going to be a grieving process when somebody passes away. However, we want to make sure that they can focus their efforts there rather than focus on any sort of bureaucracy of having to go through an overall long, drawn-out process when it comes to estate planning.
There could still be curveballs that come up. Even the best laid plans, even the most thought-out estates, there still can be curveballs that can come up. People need to have a realistic expectation, don't they?
Oh, they certainly do. And that's another reason to turn it over to your mastermind team. See, that's why people pay people like me so they can say, hey, you know what? Curveballs came out, you deal with them. You get somebody that's a good curveball hitter. In baseball, if you say, okay, the pitcher is an outstanding pitcher of curveballs or sliders or whatever it may be, okay, well, I'm not going to get my guy up to bat that can't hit a curveball to save his life. I'm going to bring in a designated hitter. I'm going to bring in that designated hitter that can get up there and knock it out of the park. That's what we do. We're your designated hitter when it comes to that overall scenario. We want to do that for you so that you don't have to learn how to hit those curveballs. We've taken care of it for you.
All right, shifting gears, starting your own business, starting a business so that you can expense some things out that will help you from a tax liability perspective. Again, another key execution strategy. Some people are still scared to start their own business. It's going to bring a whole new set of problems and issues for them to deal with. So how do they get past that and get to the execution stage?
Well, when you look at this, many times people don't know what it means to start a business. That's the biggest challenge. Once again, mindset. See, that's why I always say, that's why we started with envision and the escape plan. Because envision is critical. If you can change, remember, as I said, you got to change your inner world in order to change your outer world. Well, by focusing on that mindset, when I say start a business, that does not mean that you need to go out today and start looking at office space for lease. Doesn't mean you need to go to a shopping center and say, yeah, that would be the place for my business. You may want to do that depending upon your type of business, but it basically means, what do you enjoy doing? If you had all the time, effort, resources, and support of others, and you had to make your living somehow, money wasn't even the key object, what would you be doing with your life? Now, here's the thing. If you can identify that, find the things that you really enjoy, there is a business around that particular activity. I promise you. There is no activity that you could come up with that there's not a business to surround yourself with. So what we've got to look at is find that business that ties into those activities. Now we start that business.
All right, perhaps the easiest strategy to put down on paper, but maybe the hardest strategy to actually implement, and that is to embrace your beginning, to start, to do it, to just get up and start doing some of this action that you're talking about doing and that people are listening to you and I talk about right now. What's the final encouragement that you give someone to take off?
Well, really, we view ourselves as coaches. And some of the coaches, if you look at coaches, sometimes people have kind of a misunderstanding with regard to coaches. If you think about that, think about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is arguably the greatest golfer who's ever lived. But you know what? Tiger Woods has a coach. When you think, why would he need a coach? He's the greatest that's ever lived. Well, see, a coach knows how to take you to the next level. You think, wow, well, then his coach must really be a good golfer. See, we have some sort of a misconception in this country, in this world, that I need to find somebody that knows everything, that can do everything the best. You know what? Some of my clients are a lot better than I am at certain things, and that's how it should be. Because, see, coaches, they are trained to get the best out of you, get the most out of you, help take you to the next level. That's what we do. We offer coaching programs. We offer assistance where we can help people to do things that, quite simply, they would not do on their own. How do we know this? Because they haven't done it on their own until they come to us. We help them to take those steps. You've got to rely upon others oftentimes that can take you to the next level. Tiger Woods' example, the reason he keeps getting better and better and better is that he has a coach that's able to teach him. And it's not that his coach is a better golfer. There is no better golfer than Tiger Woods. Well, there is a coach that can make him even better. That's the part that we've got to embrace. That's what we've got to focus on. That's what we do. You see, when all is said and done, it's all about getting out there and doing it. You know, you look at, I read a book one time, and it said, the secret to all of this is this right here. And then it showed the Nike swoosh. Didn't say a word, just showed the Nike swoosh. Well, the whole concept of the Nike swoosh, their whole slogan is what?
Just do it.
Just do it. You see, the thing is, you're never going to do it perfectly. You're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. Just do it. Get out there and do it. The way you can keep from making the catastrophic mistakes, basically get involved with somebody that can help you. We've talked about this whole concept of a minefield. It's as if there are mines laid out there, and each one of these mines could destroy you. Well, you need to have somebody that has a map to those minefields, that knows how to safely guide you through that minefield so that you can get to where it is that you want to go without being devastated. That's what we can help you with. That's why you surround yourself with a mastermind team. But the key is, you've got to move forward. It can be scary. We know it can be scary. We've worked with people. We've gotten them to this level. We can do it. We can do it for anyone, regardless of their circumstances, but they've got to help us to help themselves.
The artificial wealth trap is real. It is also constantly changing, as you mentioned in that last strategy session right there. So, final word of advice to someone. I mean, what do you need to be prepared for mentally? What do you need to be prepared for physically to deal with the artificial wealth trap and to take your business, your personal life to that next level?
Just realize that you can do it. You can do it right now. You can do it wherever you're located. You need to eliminate these barriers. We can help you do that. That's why we've guided people through this overall process of starting with their dreams list, then taking it with their values list, doing things. Start with envisioning wealth. See, most people, they can't even picture it. If you can't conceive it, it's hard to believe it. And if you don't believe it, you're not going to achieve it. So when you look at these things, you've got to make sure you start with that envision mindset. Then you've got to come up with strategies. See, that's why we're here, is we help people formulate a strategy to get from point A all the way to point Z. But we had to have intermediate strategies to get from A to B to C to D and so on, all the way to Z. That's why the strategies are each so important. But then we've got to create wealth. That's about generating income. We've given you strategies on how to do that, but you've got to implement those strategies and then build upon those strategies by accumulating wealth. And then once you've done that, we've got to make sure you preserve the wealth. Plug up the leaks in that bucket so that you're not losing it all. Then you've got to execute. That's the key to all of it. You got to go out there. You got to do it. You've got us with you. We've taken away all of these barriers. We've shown you how you can do it. You just simply have to go out there, take that first step.
All right, J.J. Childers, always great to sit down with you, to get your advice, to pick your mind, to have you share this wealth of knowledge that you have to help us with our personal wealth. So thank you so much.
Thank you.